The Ramayana itself depicts the boundary line, the Lakshman Rekha, can be crossed only when necessary, but always and only for a good cause. And that's the answer to those who say that the Lakshman Rekha cannot be crossed. People who say that our courts have crossed the Lakshman Rekha, that's a favorite phrase, you read it in newspapers, you hear it on television, is a figure of speech which is derived from one of the many versions of the Ramayana. But just see what the Ramayana really says. Sita asks Rama to fetch a magical golden deer for her. Rama goes in search of one, asking Lakshmana to stand guard around Sita's dwelling house in Panchavati, which people who know more than I do say is near present-day Nasik in Maharashtra. The golden deer is in fact the demon, Maricha, who distracts Rama, and when Rama kills Maricha, the latter cries out for help, but in Rama's voice, which in turn disturbs Sita because Sita thinks that Rama has been killed. So she creates a panic and orders Lakshmana, the keeper, to go to Rama's aid. And what does Rama do? Out of obedience, he draws a perimeter line round her and says, "You must not cross this," and then goes in search of Rama. And while Lakshmana is away in search of Rama, Sita, out of compassion for a visiting guest, but that visiting guest is not really a visitor, he is Ravana, who is disguised as a poor Brahmin, crosses the line, gives him food. That's what Sita does. Following which, she is abducted, and the rest is history. Now, great constitutionalists apply this metaphor to courts. They say you are forbidden by Article 37 of the Constitution to enforce by writs, orders, the large number of directive principles of state policy which are set forth in Part 4 of the Constitution. For the constitutionalists, the principles of state policy, which cannot and therefore must not be enforced by courts of law, is the Lakshman Rekha. But ever since 1986, in a case where we had defended the Indian Express building case, the Supreme Court for the first time invoked the Free Press Clause, Article 19(1)(a), even in a purely commercial dispute between the Delhi Development Authority, the DDA, and the national newspaper, the Indian Express. Judges since then have frequently crossed the Lakshman Rekha of Article 37 in matters relating to the provisions of Part 4, simply because the state, that is the legislatures and the executive, have failed to implement or have not implemented the directive principles of state policy. In so doing, and this is to the credit of Professor Upendra Bakshi, he has eloquently told us that, and this is his phrase, the judges sitting in the Supreme Court have converted primary human needs, which are set forth in Part 4, not attended to by those whose duty it is to attend to them, into human rights. Converted human needs into human rights and making them enforceable and enforced under Article 21 of the Constitution. This is a great innovation which the courts have done. And so far, as the Ramayana itself depicts, the boundary line, the Lakshman Rekha, can be crossed only when necessary, but always and only for a good cause. And that's the answer to those who say that the Lakshman Rekha cannot be crossed.